Hey there, hi there, and a ho there. Thank you for watching the Shlama Show. I am Tanner, and we are continuing our CIA deep dive. Thank you for watching, and we're going to get back into it. So last time we were talking about, let's see, we were talking about the build-up to MKULTRA. Right. So I feel like without further ado, we have to talk about MKUltra, right? I mean, MKUltra was basically what everyone talks. It is exactly what you thought it was, right? But worse. Let's go deeper into this. In the 1940s, a lot of the research that Nazi scientists were doing, especially in Auschwitz and Dachau, were based around the drugs and how the drugs affected the prisoners. Of course, American historian Stephen Kinzer argues that the CIA project was a continuation of the experiments, considering that a number of the German scientists who were hired to work on MKUltra were a part of Operation Paperclip. I always, whenever we be talking about stuff like this, I get so like creeped out and cooped out, like, you know. LSD was originally designed as a truth drug that would produce, quote, uninhibited truthfulness in an interrogated person. The American interest in drug-related experiments began in the 40s. In 47, they initiated what is called Project Shatter, which was an interrogation program, which was the first testings of LSD. In 1950, the CIA, under a new director, initiated more experiments under previously discussed Bluebird and Artichoke, beginning on August 20th, 1951. Some of the drugs included were morphine, mescaline, and LSD. The project was headed by Mr. Sidney Gottlieb, who I think should be the next immediate person of interest, because Sidney Gottlieb was an interesting fella. Sidney Gottlieb was born 1918 and died in 1999. He was an American chemist and a spy master, most notably known for MKUltra. Gottlieb's first position was in the Department of Agriculture. He grew bored. He found a job at the National Research Center. And in 1951, he had his first day of work in the CIA. Very, very wacky guy. He'll be maybe a reoccurring figure. He was the leader of this. And some of the original intents were to use against the Soviets, the Chinese, and even Castro. They were trying one of the many 600 attempts of killing Castro, which we will be talking about at some point. It's a lot to talk about. We got time. The project attempted to produce a perfect truth drug for interrogating suspected Soviet spies during the Cold War and to explore other possibilities of mind control. Subproject 54 was the Navy's top-secret perfect concussion program, which was supposed to use suboral frequency blasts to erase memory. The project never was carried out. You'll find out... You're going to find out how goofy the CIA really is during this deep dive. A lot of these experiments just, never went anywhere. Most of the MKUltra records were destroyed in 1973 by order of Richard Helms. So it's been very difficult to gain a complete understanding of the more than 150 other projects that were related to MKUltra. The project began during a period, it's what has been described, paranoia in the CIA, which is absolutely true. Sidney Gottlieb was literally giving LSD to random people in the CIA just to see what the fuck it would do with people. They were very paranoid. They believed it was James Bond IRL. They believed moles were everywhere. They were trying to do Manchurian candidates. One of the original goals of MKUltra was to do a Manchurian candidate type situation. American historian Alfred McCoy has claimed the CIA has attempted to focus media attention on these sorts of ridiculous programs so that the public would not look into the research's primary goal, which was, again, methods of interrogation. So what are those methods of interrogation? Well, LSD is a truth serum. You can look into it more. The 1976 Church Committee found that in the MK Delta program, drugs were primarily as an aid to interrogations, but the materials were also used for harassment, discrediting, or disabling purposes. In 1964, MK Search was the name given to a continuation of the MKUltra program. The MK Search program was divided into two projects, dubbed MK Often and MK Chickwit. Funding was commenced in 65 and ended in 71. The project was a joint between the Army Chemical Corps and the CIA Office of Research and Development to find new offensive use agents and to focus again on incapacitating agents. Its purpose was to develop, test, and evaluate capabilities in the covert use of various types of covert use of biological, chemical, and radioactive material systems and techniques of producing predictable human behavioral and psychological changes in highly sensitive requirements. Over 26 by March, over 26 potential agents had been acquired for future screening. The CIA was interested in bird migration, which is another story, for chemical and biological warfare research. The subproject 139 was designated the bird disease study at our very own Penn State, and MK Often was to deal with testing various effects on drugs and animals and ultimately humans. Chickwit was concerned with acquiring information in Asia and Europe. In 1957, the CIA started a subproject called Subproject 68, conducted at the Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal under the direction of Dr. Donald Ewan Cameron. The goal was to manipulate and control human behavior, particularly methods of psychic driving and depatterning. If you don't know, psychic driving involved subjecting patients to continuous playback of recorded messages, often with themes of self-improvement or identity reinforcement while they were under the influence of various powerful psychoactive substances. What was the point? Well, they were trying to figure out how the drugs affect your brain, and well, they figured out some very interesting things. Experiments on Americans. They spent roughly $10 million or more, roughly $87 million for inflation on this experiment. It is estimated during a Senate Health Subcommittee hearing that over 30 institutions were involved in the experimentation at all social levels, at all levels. The issuing of LSD to unaware subjects in social situations was the quote. The Army was subject to testing as well. The first phase included over 1,000 soldiers who willingly volunteered. Phase 2 had 96 who were induced with the possibility of intelligence uses for the drug. The third phase was conducted on 16 unwitting, non-volunteer subjects that, after receiving, were interrogated as a part of Operation Field Testis. Now, could talk about the chemical LSD, but I think I have talked enough time on this channel about the chemical LSD. Suffice to say, lysergic acid diethylamide was invented in 1943 by Albert Hofmann, and it is one of the most powerful psychoactive substances. LSD-25 is what was known and made by the CIA, mass-produced. In 1953, they considered purchasing 10 kilograms. The proposed idea then became a reality when documents showed that they did purchase quantities from Sandoz Labs in Switzerland. Once MKUltra started, experiments administering LSD began to drug addicts, prisoners, mental patients, and prostitutes. As one agent put it, the people who could not fight back. It's very fucked up. There's several horror stories. A classic one, the one thing the CIA did was they would have like a back room, a hotel room. They would have prostitutes bring a guy in, drug them with the LSD. The prostitute was in on the shtick, I guess. And they would just watch the prostitute have sex with the man and just basically see what would happen. The aim was to find drugs that would bring out deep confessions or wipe a subject's mind clean and program them as a robot agent. Military personnel who received the mind-altering drugs were also threatened with court-martials if they told anyone about the experiments. LSD and other drugs that were administered without the subject's knowledge is a violation of the Nuremberg Code, and the U.S. has agreed to follow after World War II. Many veterans who were subjected are now seeking legal monetary reparations. And this is what the thing that I was talking about the brothels was Operation Midnight Climax, if you were wondering. Operation Midnight Climax. Operation Midnight Climax. It's a crazy story. They literally were drugging people in brothels with one-way mirrors, and they were told subjects they would extend their trips if they refused to reveal their secrets. Heroin addicts were also bribed into taking LSD with more offers of heroin. So, these weren't exactly the most ethical. And the thing is, this is just the tippity tip. This is the reason why we're starting with MKUltra. It's just the tippity tip. At the invitation of a psychology student, Ken Kesey, the author Ken Kesey, became a a victim of LSD, of MKUltra. He volunteered. Several people did. Ken Kesey was basically just getting people to just do it. Frank Olson is a classic story, an army chemist who had never taken LSD. Mysteriously plunged to his death, supposedly as a result of them pumping it into his vents. According to Stephen Kinzer, Olson had approached his superiors sometime earlier, doubting the morality of the project, and asked to resign from the CIA. One such case is a man who was given LSD in Kentucky for 77 consecutive days. Eventually, they came to realize that that LSD was not the secret to unlock the universe, but it still had a place in the cloak and dagger arsenal. However, by 1962, they had developed much better super hallucinogens, such as BZ. BZ, if you don't know, is a name that I can't pronounce, but it's also called Substance 78. It is one of the worst poisons you can take. It is a powerful deliriant. Mad as a hatter, red as a beet, dry as a bone, and blind as a bat. Other drugs were used, though, like I said, barbiturates, amphetamines, heroin, morphine, temazepam, mescaline, psilocybin, scopolamine, alcohol, and sodium pentothal. And they were super invested in hypnosis. They really thought they could control the mind. And again, these results are just hidden. They also did experiments on Canadians. They had secret detention camps. The revelation was that all of this was just hidden for decades, and then during the Church Committee, we found out how much more of it is hidden. They shredded so many documents. So many documents. One quote from the U.S. General Accounting Office report says that working with the CIA, the Department of Defense gave hallucinogenic drugs to thousands of volunteer soldiers in the 1950s and 60s. In addition to LSD, the Army also tested BZ on these soldiers. Many of these tests were conducted under the so-called MKUltra program established to counter perceived Soviet and Chinese advances in brainwashing techniques. Between 1953 and 1964, the program consisted of 149 projects involving drug testing and other studies on unwitting human subjects, and it revolted so many deaths. Thing is, there's not much we really can do. In 1987, the Supreme Court affirmed the case in States v. Stanley. The majority argued that a test for liability that depends on an extent to which particular suits would call into question military discipline and decision making would itself require judicial inquiry into, and hence intrusion upon military matters. In dissent, Justice William Brennan argued that the need to preserve military discipline should not protect the government from liability and punishment for serious violations of constitutional rights. The medical trials at Nuremberg in 1947 deeply impressed upon the world that experimentation with unknowing human subjects is morally and legally unacceptable. The United States Military Tribunal established the Nuremberg Code as a standard against which to judge German scientists who experimented with human subjects. In defense of this principle, military intelligence officials began surreptitiously testing chemicals and biological materials, including LSD. And Sandra Day O'Connor wrote a separate dissent stating, "No judicially crafted rule should insulate from liability the involuntary and unknowing human experimentation alleged to have occurred in this case. Indeed, as Justice Brennan observes, the United States played an instrumental role in the criminal prosecution of Nazi officials who experimented with human subjects during World War II, and the standards that the Nuremberg military tribunals developed to judge the behavior of the defendants stated that the voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential to satisfy moral, ethical, and legal concepts. If this principle is violated, the very least that society can do is to see that the victims are compensated as best as they can be by the perpetrators." So now you have heard the story of MKUltra. But that does not even remotely close the books on the CIA. We're only through the second video, unfortunately. Thank you for watching. Yeah, we're just gonna keep on picking apart cool stuff from this from the CIA's history, and we're gonna keep on uploading videos. Have a good one.